Sejam bem-vindos e bem-vindas a mais um Xamãs Conet, Congresso Internacional de Xamanismo na Internet. Hoje nós vamos ter a honra de realizar uma entrevista exclusiva com uma das pessoas mais influentes dentro do druidismo a nível mundial. Hoje nós vamos trazer aqui para a nossa TV Consciência Próspera e para o Xamãs Conet ninguém menos que Philip Carr-Gomm. Philip tem sido uma das pessoas mais influentes em levar essa chama das tradições ancestrais, principalmente das tradições celtas. Philip dirigiu a Ordem dos Bardos Ovates e Druidas de 88 a 2020. Ele é psicólogo, terapeuta, envolvido em uma série de institutos ligados à saúde humana e à saúde do bem-estar, e tem atualmente se identificado como uma das pessoas que trabalha com a sabedoria perene da humanidade. Para nós aqui do programa, uma grande honra receber esse grande guerreiro da Terra que vem trabalhando para a cura planetária e para a cura da humanidade. Então aqui eu vou rodar a vinheta enquanto eu chamo o Felipe para conversar conosco. Yahoo!
Hello.
Welcome, Philip Carr-Gomm, to our program. Welcome to Xamãs Connect. Welcome to TV Consciência Próspera, and to all Brazilian audience. It's an honor to have you here in our program.
Thank you, Gabriel. It's lovely to see you here. After seeing you in Glastonbury a few months ago, it's lovely to see you here now online.
So, in May of this year, I was in a kind of peregrination in Glastonbury, and I just met Philip on the street, and I just break through with a hug and Philip. It was lovely to meet you and your lovely wife. And I was about to go to the tour, my first time in Glastonbury, my first time in England also, and it was amazing to receive your tips. You told me to go to the apple tree circles. So
yes,
tell us about this experience, this event that you were in Glastonbury. A lot of druids, I believe.
One of the nice things about growing old is that you have this store of memories, of wonderful memories. And so when I was 18 years old in 1970, I was initiated into the Order of Bards Ovates and Druids, and I was taken. I had to wear a druid robe, and I had to walk up Glastonbury Tor where you walked.
Oh yeah.
And at that time, the field on the left, there's an initial field. You go past a house that the magician Dion Fortune lived in on the left. Then you go through a kind of gate thing, and then you go up the Tor, and there's a field on the left where sometimes we have done ceremonies. But this time, when I was 18, we continued up to the top. And there I was initiated into the order. And this changed my life completely. And I had the most wonderful 50 years that followed on from then. And for the last 20 years or so, the order, we've been having big gatherings in Glastonbury for the summer solstice and the winter solstice. And we have invited, at the last meeting we had, we invited people to contribute money, and that paid for a circle of trees, a beautiful circle of crabapple trees, to be planted on the lower slopes. And it creates a lovely space for ritual. And I've heard already that people have started to do rituals there at the base of Glastonbury Tor. So when I met you in the street that time, I suggested, if you were going there, to have a look at this circle, because it's very beautiful and there's a special kind of atmosphere that's created there.
And yes, and it was lovely. Actually, I did a little ceremony. I meditate a lot on that days, and it was perfect to have this feeling of being close to the Tor, but not inside the Tor. And then a lot of drummers starts to play when I was there meditating. It was so beautiful, this connection between the apple tree circle and the top of the Tor. It was just magic. Speaking about magic, here in Brazil, and also I believe maybe probably in all the world, people are very ancient about magic, a very I don't know, a lot of new followers, seekers, trying to learn different skills, trying to reconnect with Mother Earth, trying to learn ancient wisdoms. What do you think we are going through? What do you think this new era we are passing, and what is the rule of this ancient tradition and also Druidry to guide all these feeling, all these needs regarding the
Yeah.
population?
Yes. Well, it's like in a way a spiral, and so we're coming back to this interest in magic. And of course, some skeptics and materialists would say this is a regression, that we
Mm.
are departing from a scientific understanding and trying to engage in superstitious practices that have no value. But I see it in a different way, which is that we are revisiting the ancient ways, but at a new turn of the spiral of time, where we can still keep our scientific, rational consciousness, but also see that there's more to life than what the scientific and rational approach gives. In a way, we've come to an impasse. The particular way that the world has gone has resulted in this crisis, this point of tension and difficulty, and the climate crisis and the political crises, and so on. And we know that we need a different approach. And that approach already exists. It's existed for thousands of years. And that's an understanding of reality which sees everything in a wider context, sees it in a cosmic context. So it's a different way of understanding that mystics and magicians have always understood through their own personal experience and through their training, that everything is connected. And therefore, if you can develop that awareness in yourself, you can be a force for good in the world. Your magic can be of value in the world.
Wonderful. So when you start to seek for these teachings, tell us a little bit about your story, your biography regarding this ancient knowledge and Druidry also. And yesterday I was watching a Gaia streaming program, and you are on the the show, and it was Signs from Above, something like that, and you were telling about the giants and all these carvings on the landscape of Britain, and you were there. So
Yeah.
I think you are in this path for a long way. So tell us a little bit when you start, when it happened, and now you're here leading these ceremonies and being a leader, international leader for Druidry, but also for the perennial wisdom. So tell us how
Hmm.
you are here now.
How it began. Well,
Yeah.
I think that there are these triggers that happen in our lives during our lifetime. Something can happen, either a book or a meeting with a person or a spontaneous experience. Various different triggers can happen, and or catalysts. And for me, I was lucky. I was just 11 years old, and
Mm.
I bought a book called The Life of the Buddha by a lady called L. Adams Beck. It was very florid. My father knew the founder of the Buddhist Society in London, so maybe that's what led me to that book. But I read this book when I was 11, and it woke me up. It was like somebody switching on a light. It was so clear and obvious that the goal of the Buddha was the only goal worth pursuing, the goal of enlightenment, of illumination. Why would you seek anything less important. It's the most, for me, it was self-evident. It was the most important thing in the world. So that was the moment that I kind of feel that I got switched on, if you like. And in that same year, when I was 11, I met the old chief druid. Again, he was a friend of my father. So my father was a kind of acted as a vehicle for me to meet, encounter this, this person and have this awakening. Although he himself wasn't interested in spirituality, he always said, I used to tease him about it. And he'd said, no, I'm not interested in it at all. But he would have lots of friends who were interested in it. And he had friends who were psychologists and psychoanalysts as well. And so we had a very lively intellectual life as a child in my family. And so I've had the benefit of this pursuit and interest of spiritual development and personal development and magic and the esoteric and yes, all these things for a long time. I'm 71 now, so that's like what, 50, 71, 11, that's 60 years. So for 60 years, I've been pursuing this interest. So luckily, I've managed to cover quite a lot of territory in that time.
Wonderful. And this week, on your Instagram, I saw that you took a picture with Satish Kumar. And
yes.
I am bringing Satish to the conversation because I am also a student from the Schumacher College, And
yes,
Satish,
great.
Yes, yeah. Satish is
Did you go to Schumacher?
No, I studied in Schumacher College, Brazil, but with Satish and other professors doing online courses, online classes.
Fantastic.
But it's the same program, holistic science and leadership for transition, and the same content. We do it here in Brazil, but also with local teachers. But Satish is very special for me, and it's very beautiful to see when a druid can dialogue with other teachers, other professors, other masters that are not in the same spiritual path, but indeed they are in the same spiritual path, but with different clothes, different shapes, and it makes me proud, And please tell about it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yes, he's a lovely man, and I'm so pleased to know him. And there's something very interesting in there because Satish was brought up as a Jain, and Jainism, is a very old religion. It's pre-Vedic, and it's full of a deep wisdom. And I've been studying Jainism for about 15 years now, and there's an interesting thing if you take one perspective, say your chosen path, whether that's Christian or whatever it is, and then if you study another perspective, it gives you the possibility to view things in more depth. Do you see what I mean? And I came to this understanding when I became friends with a chap who lives locally, and we ended up having, once a month we would have breakfast together. And he's a psychologist, and he has all the same interests as me, has done many things very similar to me, lived in other countries and so on. And I was reflecting one day of how enjoyable I found it to talk to him and how interesting. And I realized that we had exactly the same interests, but our perspectives were just slightly different.
Yeah.
And that gave a depth. It's like the difference between what's it called? Monocular vision versus binocular vision. So you get this binocular vision. So, and in fact, this concept. So I've written a book called Seek Teachings Everywhere, which looks at the idea of the perennial traditions, and I have a number of essays in that book about Jainism and Druidism, two completely different spiritual paths, but which have a lot in common, but also differences as well. And so I've talked with Satish about that too, of course, because of his Jain connection.
Yeah, and I never had the opportunity to go to the Schumacher College in England, but I know that in Devon there is a lot of woods and fields and magical paths also, and some stone circles. And it's not for me. It's not a surprise that Schumacher College is rooted in these landscapes, because when I walk through to these landscapes, I can understand that the earth puts us together to do something for her. I have this feeling that uh, sometimes we put a lot of different groups and audience together because we are in the same resonance, in the same field, etc. And it's kind of reincarnation of ancient groups. But I don't know, but maybe in 1,000 years ago these places are also a place for druids, don't you think?
Well, yes, exactly. And if we entertain the idea that reincarnation is a reality, and that we've been going through many, many lives, we come to this interesting point in the story of the earth, where the very existence of humanity is threatened, and we don't know if civilization will continue. In the Jain tradition, they say, as they do in the Hindu, and I believe Buddhist as well, that there are these great cycles of time of thousands of years. And in Jainism, they say that the population of humanity will be reduced to just a small amount of people on the earth.
Oh, yeah.
And then it'll, go around again in another cycle of evolution. And it seems that that's a possibility with what's happening to the environment. But leaving that aside for the moment, if you ask yourself, what does it mean for all of these humans to have been born again and again on the earth, and now we're all together, and we've all had, dozens of lives on this planet, and at this moment in time, at this critical moment in time, we're together, and that's very interesting, and it explains perhaps why we have this instant connection and sense of empathy. When you hugged me in the street in Glastonbury, it wasn't like a stranger hugging me. It wasn't a helpless, some strange man hugging me. It's like it was. So I think
a kindred spirit.
A kindred spirit. That's right. And you go around the world, and there are lots of people that feel the same way, which is fantastic. It gives us hope, I think.
Yeah, it gives us hope. And this is my next question for you, because I know that you are doing a lot of work to Mother Earth and teaching a lot of people, and also writing books and doing letters and workshops, etc. And you met a lot of other masters and professors. And what is your sensation, your feeling about this new era you're going through? Because we are in a very critical moment, as you said. But also sometimes when I read the news, I say, "Oh, I don't know if we're gonna have a future to our kids, etc." So sometimes I'm not optimist, but sometimes when I hear you, when events like we just had happens, I know we are here and we have hope. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, I think it depends on your understanding of reality, and if you have the mystical understanding of reality that comes from, ideally it comes from experience. It's not just something that you read about, but it's something that you experience in altered states of consciousness, in your meditations, in your dreams, in certain deep experiences that you have. The common factor that everyone reports is this sense of love being at the heart of reality, and of all of us being one, of all of reality being one, this huge field of love and awareness. And then out of that field, there's this world of time and space and all that, because that field is beyond time and space. It doesn't exist in time and space. It's infinite and eternal, and it's not part of the flow of time or the changes in space. So what happens is, when we go from this place of unity and love and connection into separation and individuality, for some deep purpose of evolution. So we're separated into little units. There's me, there's you, there's everybody else. Then we're in this world of time and space. And that's a world where life, in order to unfold, has to die. There's this process of decay and death and rebirth and death and rebirth and so on. And this happens to planets, and it happens to individuals, and it happens to societies and civilizations, and possibly to well, it certainly happens to animal species, and maybe it's going to happen to us as species as well. But that doesn't mean to say that the reality, the deeper reality behind all of this doesn't continue to exist and evolve. So my belief is that evolution is continuing, and that from our perspective, it looks terrible at the moment, because it feels as if it's compromised, and that we may destroy ourselves. But I believe that there's some extraordinary plan of love that is working its way out, if you like, and that which is why I'm hopeful and positive. Even though the evidence, as you say, you look at the evidence and you may as well give up. It's just terrible what's happening, you know. But that's just at one level, you know. That's like, you know, you can imagine if you were on your deathbed, you might say to your partner or your loved ones, well, the evidence tells me that I may not be here for very long, you know, but I'm still feeling okay in my soul, and I'll always be with you, and in some other form, in some other way, you know, and then pop, off you go.
Wonderful. You're right. We have to trust in our soul feeling. Can we say that? Soul feeling?
Yeah, soul feeling. Yeah, absolutely. It's a soul feeling. And, you know, from a kind of certain perspective, what I've said, people would be very angry with. They would say that, you know, what you've said is some strange kind of illusion, or you're in denial, or, you know, you're not accepting. I don't think so, because I accept fully the precarious and horrible. I mean, all you have to do is look at what's happening in Ukraine or Yemen, you know, or Libya, or, you know, and the list goes on, you know, to see that it's truly tragic and horrible. You know,
But in the same way, we are experiencing a lot of people awakening and going to these sacred places like Stonehenge, Avery. And here in Brazil, we are experiencing a very strong movement regarding the plants, the ayahuasca and other special and magical drinks, etc. And we can see something's happening, and people are seeking for wisdom, are seeking for reconnection, and are seeking to the ancient ways. And so I think we must have hope, you know, even
exactly.
if the scientists
When I met Satish, it was at that photograph on Instagram was at the medicine festival, which was about plant medicine and so on. And there were 7,000 people there, and it was lovely. The atmosphere was fantastic. Everybody was so warm and friendly and interested in these understandings.
There's a good spirit going on besides this destruction, aura, and wars, etc. And also, I think, do you think it's part of this awakening that people have to go to these sacred places on earth, like Stonehenge, like Glastonbury, because I believe in the power of these peregrinations. At least for myself, when I go to these places, I'm not the same person anymore. I don't know what's happening, but I feel that I connect with something. I download something. I don't know. Maybe we access the Akashic records. Maybe we access all the energy that is in these places. But and of course, all of these places are visited for a lot of tourists, etc. But I think that now it's a very good time to do that. What do you think about it?
Well, yes, because on the one hand, you could say that we must be careful because of the ecological footprint, our carbon footprint, and that we are deluded if we think by moving physically we can change our consciousness, because it's not necessary to move. And it's true that you can, in a number of traditions, in the Jain tradition, in the Christian tradition, in various traditions, there's a concept where you take a vow to not go anywhere. It's the opposite of a pilgrimage. Lots of people don't know about this, but you can do the opposite of a pilgrimage, which is you say, I will not leave, for instance, I will not leave my town for 3 months. I will stay within my town for 3 months, or I will stay in my house for 2 weeks, or I will stay in my just my one room for 3 months, whatever it is. And that's an interesting discipline spiritually. And then on the other hand, displacing yourself, moving yourself in space seems to have a very powerful effect. I've noticed this not only spiritually in terms of taking pilgrimages to sacred places, and I wrote a book called Sacred Places about the phenomenon of sacred places. But also just for writing books, I've found this strange phenomenon which a number of people talk about, where if you want to write a book, it often helps to write it, to leave home and go and write it somewhere else. And there's probably a very mundane explanation around, you get out of your routine, and you have different sights and sounds and different stimuli and so on. But I think there's something more going on. There's something about the contribution that the land makes and the history of this place that helps your consciousness to access different information, actually. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and especially if you have opportunity to do some rituals in these places, because I think the language of the ritual is about connection, is about to open a source that is available, but you have to open it. So maybe the ritual is this language that can open the window to these sacred places. That's why I believe that we have, of course, we don't have to go every time to these places physically, but in spirit, in meditation, in projection, astral projection, I don't know, but because we are all connected, we are all one at one level. So I don't think we must do it every time, but the rituals can bring this experience, and you also can open a different source of energy that can heal our consciousness, our places, the earth. I'm living now in the countryside. I live near São Paulo city. It's a very huge city, crowded city, but now I'm living at the countryside, more close to nature, with birds, etc. And I am experiencing the difference between my energy level, I have opportunity to see the sunrise, the sunset, the moonset, the moonrise, and the equinox, the solstice. And more than ever, I believe that everybody must do this, not only pagans, not only druids, but the humankind as a whole system must to reconnect with the time also, not only the space but the time. So and this is one of the most basic druidic teachings, to watch nature and to feel and to connect. But we, on the other hand, have all the system, the matrix going on. So sometimes I don't know what to do. I will do it for myself, but my neighbor is not doing it. So how can we deal with these different different levels of energy and of consciousness, of course, but it's a kind of crisis, and some people are meditating, others are fighting, and how can we deal with that?
Well, I think you pointed to this question of time. If you take the festivals as an example, we're coming up to the spring equinox in Brazil, and it'll be the autumn equinox here. This is a time where just for a moment things are balanced, and then you tip. For us, we're going to tip into the dark half of the year. The nights are getting longer. The trees are starting to lose their leaves. For you, the spring is coming, and the energy will be coming up, and there'll be that good time to start projects and so on. And when you start to recognize these moments, in Druidism, we have 8 moments during the year, the solstices and equinoxes and the festivals in between. They help to kind of synchronize you. And what's interesting is happening in Europe, and to a lesser extent in America, but I think it'll come to you as well, is that it's becoming more mainstream. When I was a kid, when I was 18, 19, 20, it was very strange to celebrate the solstice, to do anything at the solstice or the equinox. Whereas now the BBC have poems for the solstice. They have, people suggest where you can go to watch the sunrise. It's no longer the province just of pagans or people interested in this spirituality. And so gradually, we have to accept that there's a whole sort of thousands of years of evolution, really, within. I mean, it was Carl Jung who suggested this idea that at any moment on the planet, you have thousands of years of evolution. So you have some people who are stuck in an incredibly primitive way of behaving, which we see in war, for instance. And then you see the most incredible people doing the most loving, beautiful, creative things. And so we just have to, I think, gravitate naturally to our fellow traveling companions, people who are on the same wavelength as us. It doesn't mean to say we have to be elitist or separate ourselves from what we consider are less civilized people. But we don't have to do that. But we can recognize that people are at very different stages of evolution. And the question then becomes, well, who am I going to get involved with and work with and cooperate with?
Wonderful. Nós estamos aqui conversando com o Philip Carr-Gomm, diretamente da Inglaterra, aqui na nossa gravação do Xamãs Conet especial de primavera, em breve aqui celebrando a entrada dessa estação e trazendo essa grande personalidade do mundo espiritual, druídico, para o nosso programa. So, Philip, I don't know that I don't know if you know that the Brazilian people are even more studying about Druidism and also ancient traditions and shamanism. So we have a very growing community, Druidical community, power, strong and growing. So if you can leave a message to this community here in Brazil that read your books and watch your programs, I think that we all be glad to hear.
Okay. Well, that gives me such joy to hear that that there are many of you following the Druid way in Brazil too. This is very beautiful, and it shows us, I think, that many of us are kind of resonating in the same way. We're hearing the same messages from the earth and from the stars and from the trees, particularly the trees, I think. And Druidry, at its heart, it places the trees. It understands. It's a spiritual way that understands that our destiny is completely bound up with the destiny of the forests and the trees. And of course, in Brazil, with the Amazon, it's wonderful that you have this big forest that needs protection. And by working together, we can hopefully do, and even if it's a tiny bit, there's this famous story of an old man who goes down to the beach, and he finds a little girl throwing starfishes back into the water because they've got stranded when the tide came up, and now and he says, "What are you doing?" And she says, "Well, I'm putting them back in the water because they might die. If they don't get back into the water, they'll die." You see. And the old man looks at all the thousands of starfish all the way along this long beach, and he says, "Well, you can't possibly help them all. You can't possibly make a difference." And she holds him the starfish, holds it to him, and she says, "Well, it certainly makes a difference to this one," and then throws the starfish in the water. So every tree that we save, every tree that we plant, every prayer that we make is of value, even though it's very small.
Thank you very much for your words. I really believe that we are being part of the shift of the consciousness of the whole planet, and we're being part of the planetary renewal, planetary regeneration. And that's why we are here chatting. I am here in São Paulo, you are in England, and a lot of other kindred spirits are with us and will be with us in the same moment watching us. And speaking about that, can you add your last few words about the jobs, the works, the projects you are in, and if you want to leave a message or a campaign you want to support or something, and we can share all these, websites, Instagram, I don't know if you want to share something.
Yes. Well, so when I mentioned at the beginning of this interview that when I was 18, I was initiated on Glastonbury Tour, 1970, and there were probably about a dozen elderly people wearing robes in the ceremony in a circle. And as I was initiated on the tour, I could see hundreds of people and children and animals and flowers, and it was just very beautiful. And over the years, the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids has grown enormously. And the training program that I started to develop 35 years ago, is now published in Portuguese and in Italian and French and English and Dutch and German. So obod.pt, I think it is, or possibly druidry.pt. I'll have to find out. But we have a flourishing community in Portugal, and members in Brazil too, and I'm involved at the moment. A particular project I'm working with is in the because of my interest in psychology, in the mental health benefits of Druidry. Because
Wonderful.
in psychology in general, they've taken ideas from Buddhism, for instance, in certain approaches. The whole mindfulness movement, for instance, comes out of Buddhism. So, and so in the psychological world, they have in fact said, why don't we have some inputs from other spiritualities?
Wonderful.
So I was at a conference last week of the British Psychological Society, and there I gave a paper about the mental health benefits of Druidry, because what we found over the years, we've had about 30,000 people take our course in these different languages. We found that it seems to have a very real positive effect on people's mental well-being. And so now we're starting to look at it in some detail and talk about it.
Wonderful. So, Philip, thank you very much. So, to all Brazilian audience, I will leave here at the comments all the links where you can find more about Philip Carr-Gomm, about the Order of Bards Ovates and Druids in England and Portugal, and also all the links related with our conversation. You can find it here just below in our comments. So, in the name of the Xamãs Connect community, in the name of the TV Consciência Próspera, I'd like to thank you very much to this time together. And thank you for your life, for your example, and for your humanity, and for your beautiful heart. I'm just it's such an honor to us, and for me as a Brazilian Druid to meet you and to talk with you. And yes, it's wonderful. I just have no words. So thank you very much.
Well, it's such a pleasure. I'm glad we met in Glastonbury High Street.
And inshallah, see you soon until my next peregrination.
Okay,
So,
thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you.